Hi, everybody. So here we are, day 12. 12, I think it's 12 anyway. Honestly, you really, really quickly lose track of time. And for those of us in all the different countries around the world, I'm so sorry that you've had to join us in lockdown, but it's really not that bad. Anyway, today I thought, after speaking to my dad yesterday, because I thought, oh, I'll do focaccia because it's nice and simple. But then Dad said, well, why not do pizza? I mean, quite rightly, it is very, very much the similar recipe. And the good thing about it is that we must have lots of bits lying about in our fridge that we want to use up. And pizza is a really good, fun way to get rid of them. Excuse me, fiddling with my AirPods. I know there was a problem with sound quality on the last one, so I'm trying this way to use these as a microphone. And I've also flipped the video so that when you look at it on your phone, you can look at it portrait and hopefully see it in full size. I've been experimenting with driving Anton absolutely crazy, experimenting with different softwares so that I can hopefully add ingredients and comments underneath. And if I'm good enough, I'm also going to try and do it in Spanish as well, because that is only fair. But please forgive me for my translation capabilities. Anyway, here we go. You don't need many ingredients at all. It's absolutely basic. Flour. I'm doing 400 grams of plain strong flour. That's bread flour. For focaccia, bread flour is better, but you can get away with just an all-purpose white flour. Just don't use self-raising because the baking powder that's in self-raising will kill the yeast. So a good white flour. You could also use wholemeal, centeno, any flour you want. However, just bear in mind that a wholemeal flour soaks up an enormous amount of water and will give you a harder base. So if I was doing whole grain flour, wholemeal, centeno, spelt, I would mix it half and half. 200 grams of a whole grain, 200 grams of a white, and then you'll get the substance. Best thing about bread flour is that it has more gluten and gives you a better rise and a better stretch and a better flavor. So we've got flour, a 7-gram sachet of active dried yeast, about a teaspoon of brown sugar. That's all I've got down here at the moment, but you should try using honey if you're using honey. If you do have honey, just 1 teaspoon. Then you've got a pinch of salt to add flavor. A spare bit of flour on the side for rolling and kneading. For the pizza base, you can just roll it into a ball, pop it into the freezer, or use it immediately, roll it out, shape it to the thickness that you like, and then you've got a pizza. But today I'm going to concentrate on the focaccia. So I have a baking pie dish, really, a pie tin with a piece of parchment just to help stop it from sticking on the bottom, and then we'll come to that later. So, first things first, I keep looking to see if this is in the camera and in the right position. Oh, sorry, the last ingredients, a good, relatively good slug of olive oil and some lukewarm water, not hot, but not cold. So the first thing to do is to add your make sure that your yeast is working, because quite a lot of times, sometimes you can buy yeast, it could be dead, and then it's not going to get you anywhere. So the first thing to do is a little bit of water. Put your sugar or honey into it. Dissolve it a little bit. Always, always, always. I do things in three times quite a lot, don't I? It's a bit like, oh, nay, nay, and thrice nay, said Frankie Howard. So dissolve your honey or your sugar, add your yeast, and then give that a few minutes to check that it rises. I'm just going to put it on here because this is nice and warm. Uh, Salt is always one of the last things you add because it will kill your yeast. Okay, so you can now see that the yeast, water, and honey or sugar has started to activate and you've got a bit of a froth on it. That's exactly what you need. To be honest, I know it's a bit of a pain. You have to wait about 15 minutes. Oh, the earpods! Um, but it is worth doing because there's nothing more disappointing than going through making the whole stuff and then finding that your yeast is dead and isn't going to do anything. In the background, I've turned the oven on to 50 degrees, which is the lowest my oven goes to. Turn your oven to the very lowest, warm it up, and then make your dough, and I'll show you what to do with that afterwards. Okay, so my oven is warm. We've got our 400 grams of flour, and into that we are just going to add our yeast mix with the water. Put this to one side. The next thing you want is a really nice, healthy slug of good quality olive oil. I would say probably a couple of tablespoons. Right, so we'll start mixing this with our fingers. And then you want to add a little bit of lukewarm water at a time. Now, once you've started to distribute the water through the flour, and it's just starting to take a shape and hold, what you need next, he says, because he doesn't remember where he's put it, here we are, is a little bit of salt. Not too much because, as I say, it will kill the yeast. Now, the other good thing about focaccia and pizza bases, contrary to popular belief, they don't need an enormous amount of kneading. It's not like bread. You want to start the gluten working a little, but you don't want to work the gluten strands so that it becomes very tough. So that's quite a benefit for this. So first things first, let's take, it really doesn't use a lot of water at a time. You want the dough to be soft and pliable. See, that's quite a good texture. I don't know how to show it to you. It will break because there's not enough kneading done yet. Just move that to one side. Get our flour. Spread a little flour on the surface. Take your dough. And this is one of the best ways to do it, is stretch the dough as a way of kneading it. If you just hold the dough, I know that if somebody's out there, they're going to be very technical and a real baker aficionado and tell me, oh, Johnny, you're doing that totally wrong. Well, I'm at home, nobody can come in, and I don't care. The other thing you could do, if you have a good mixer with a dough hook, you could use that. You could also, if you have a bread machine, do this whole process on the setting for mixing and rising. That makes it really simple. But to be honest, in this day and age, kneading is not that bad. It's quite satisfying, actually. You can take out, this is for the tax man. Right, so once you've got your dough smooth and kind of elasticy, that is the hard work over and done with. Doesn't take long. Now, the best thing to do now is actually to let it rise. So we're going to pop it in the bowl. I know, I'm using the bowl that I had the yeast in. Naughty me! Cover it. You could use cling film, but I prefer the plate because I'm going to rise mine in the oven. So I've heated the oven to 50 degrees, left it running for a few minutes and then switched it off. Then we're going to now put it in the oven with the oven turned off and give it about 30 minutes to do the full rise. Okay, so the dough has had about 30 to 40 minutes to rise in a warm place. I put it in the oven, warmed with the door open, and now you can see that it's probably doubled or tripled in size. So all you have to do now, you don't have to do a lot of work to it, which is even better. Put some more flour on your surface, turn it out, and you'll see that the dough is now really, really light and airy. So all you want to do now is just knock it back a little bit, form it into a nice ball. Now this quantity with 400 grams of flour will easily make you two decent sized pizzas. I'm not going to show you pizza because that's pretty much common sense. Just cut it, do what I'm doing now, shape it into a ball, roll it out into the size you like, no problem, done, bosh. Or roll it into a rectangle, put your tomato sauce, mozzarella and various toppings on, and then you've got a long pizza for cutting and sharing. But this is going to be focaccia. So just pressing it out into a rough circle the size of our baking tin. Great thing is you don't have to be precise because it's going to rise again. And then get your tin. I put parchment in the bottom to stop it sticking. Don't worry too much about pressing it right to the exact size because, as I say, it's going to rise again, which is good. And then just a drop of olive oil. That's just to stop it drying out. Yep, and I've taken my gloves off. Spank me. And there you have it. That is now ready for its second rise. The reason you put olive oil on is just to stop it from crusting while it's rising. Because if it dries and crusts, it has a tendency to split. So that is that. We're now going to put that back into a warm place for about 15-20 minutes. And then we'll be back to finish it off. Right, so It's been rising for another 15, 20 minutes in a warm place, and you can now see, let's check it's in the right spot. Ta-da! It's risen. If it doesn't rise fast enough for you, just have patience and leave it. It will rise. The other thing you can do, although I would practice with it first. Yeah, I know, I put my gloves back on. Safety first. Is you can actually put the dough straight. If you make this look like before you go to bed, you can put the dough straight into use cold water, not warm, and put it straight into the fridge. Hang on, I've got a piece of salt in here. The benefit of that is that you actually get a much more intense flavor by rising it overnight. But it can be tricky, and sometimes you can wake up and the whole thing is just overblown and gone. So this is simple. So this is your focaccia, and I was trying to be posh and keep it really clean like the Galloping Gourmet. Come on down. Okay, this is your focaccia. Now all you have to do is push your finger in. Make yourself a really nice series of holes, like so. The trouble I have is that I haven't got enough ingredients here to hand to finish it off the way I would like to finish it. So this one is just going to be simple olive oil with Himalayan sea salt, but you can put a black olive or a green olive in each of the holes. You could put a piece of red pepper. You could pop a chunk of feta cheese. What's really nice is just grate some lemon zest, some rosemary, and some sea salt. This is just going to be a very simple one. Drizzle it with olive oil, making sure to try and fill the holes a little bit. And do pour a little bit around the edges of the pan. Okay, I've gone heavy on the olive oil, but the benefit of putting it around the edge of the pan is that it almost fries the dough as it's baking. So that, my dears, is quite simple. I've got some Himalayan sea salt. One thing about the focaccia is it's great if you cut it, make a ham and cheese sandwich and then toast it so the inside goes all melty. I'm a salt addict, so I'm going to put plenty on. You could put herbs, as I say, olives, cheese. Just play with it. Do whatever you like. There you are. You could put pieces of Serrano ham. Anything you like. Now this is going to go into a preheated oven now my oven is a commercial oven, so it's going in at 180. Probably on a domestic oven, depending on the quality of it, I would say between 180 and 200. It's not going to take long to cook. It's only going to take about 15 minutes, but I'll go and put it in and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. See you in a minute. Right, so it's finished baking. That one took about 15, 20 minutes and I did it at 180. Here is your focaccia. It doesn't look doesn't look very exciting, but I assure you it's very nice. Now, it would look better if it had rosemary sprinkled on top or black olives or whatever, but this one hasn't, so I apologize. Now, your focaccia should turn in the tin. If it doesn't, leave it for a few minutes and then just loosen the edges. And we'll turn it out onto a plate because this is going to be our lunch. And I think we'll have these as ham and cheese toasted sandwiches. The thing with focaccia, hang on. There's the base. When you tap it, it should sound pretty hollow. There you go. Is that in There you are. So not terribly exciting, but it's a really, really good, quick and easy standby recipe for when you just want something homemade, some homemade bread. Um, of course, this one is a very savoury one. I've never tried a sweet focaccia. I don't know if it would work or not. Um, I don't see why not, but it will. It's just a totally different thing to bread. If you're going to make a pizza, all you would do is, as I say, that portion would make two good sized pizzas. Cut them up into two, roll each portion into a nice ball, and then press it with a rolling pin to get the size that you want, and as thick or as thin as you want. With a pizza base, you don't have to do that second rise. You can just go straight to tomato sauce, cheddar, whatever you want. Excuse me, I've got hiccups. I've just drunk a can of Coke. Oh, I'm such a devil. And your pizza, you can top it with whatever you like, but that does need to go into a very hot oven, probably about 220. Pizza takes probably 10, 15 minutes max to cook. My advice is not to load up the pizza with too much blah, 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 in too much wet ingredients that will like leak a lot of water. So, for example, I tried it on the other day and I had chopped peppers from Mercadona that were frozen, and I had a wild mushroom mix that was frozen. I sprinkled those on, but because they were frozen, there was so much water that was released, the pizza was a little bit soggy. So that's it. Dead simple, easy to make, and to be honest, it's a very simple thing to make for your neighbors or people who are on their own, because although focaccia is best eaten on the day it's made, once it's cool, it freezes fantastically. And then all you have to do is thaw it and pop it into a warm oven. Simple as that. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thank you very much for joining me on this little journey. I don't know what to do next. I had a suggestion about cookies, which is brilliant. Yeah. All I need to do is go and get some butter. I might venture out in a couple of days to the supermarket once we've started to run low on essentials at home. I don't want to do a needless journey just to get butter, but I will do that. I need butter, sugar, and we'll probably do chocolate chip. How does that sound? Okay. Thank you all very much. Virtual hugs and see you soon. Bye. Bye. Oh, and don't forget, don't cut it till it's cold.